The artificial sky above the Vayari capital shimmered with false sunlight, casting golden rays through the glass dome overhead. Beneath its glow, the corridors of the citadel bustled with diplomats, traders, and soldiers. An undercurrent of tension hummed through the crowd, as if the metal beneath their feet remembered a war long past. Zura moved like a shadow through it all, her midnight blue armor catching glints of light, her luminous yellow eyes scanning faces with the precision of a soldier and the weight of someone who had seen far too much. Then she saw him. For a moment, her mind rejected the shape, the way he walked, the exact tilt of his shoulders. Her heart stuttered as her breath caught. The man stood at the edge of the flow of traffic, seemingly unaffected by the press of bodies around him. His black tactical uniform was outdated by at least 2 centuries. His face, was the same. Not aged, not altered. Time had passed him by like a stranger. Her voice was barely a whisper when she stepped in front of him. "You died in my arms 200 years ago, human. So how are you back without aging a single day?" He looked at her with confusion, his brows drawing together in slow recognition. Do I know you?" Zura's throat tightened. The voice, too, was unchanged. There had always been something quietly defiant about it. Not arrogance, but resolve. A soldier's tone. She reached out as if to touch him, then withdrew her hand, curling her fingers into a fist. The air felt thinner now. Her body remembered the weight of him going limp in her arms, the warmth draining from his skin as blood soaked his uniform. She turned sharply. "Come with me. Now." He hesitated, then followed, as if compelled by instinct. The citadel's polished corridors blurred into angular hallways of military-grade steel. Behind secured doors, silence waited like an old enemy. They entered a private chamber lined with translucent displays and energy-shielded walls. He paced slowly, eyes lingering on unfamiliar tech. "Where am I?" Zura studied him, noting every detail. No implants, no visible scarring. The same lean frame, the same dark eyes that once held too many secrets. "You're on Vayer Prime. Year, 3791 Galactic Standard. You died in 3591. We burned your body. I saw it." The man blinked. "That's not possible. The last thing I remember, we were pinned near the Asari Ridge. You'd been shot. I covered you, and then..." He winced, pressing fingers to his temple. "It's fragments. Gunfire. Your voice. Then nothing." Zura's voice was like steel cooling in water. "I carried you out. You'd taken the hit meant for me. I watched your heart stop." He looked genuinely shaken. "That was yesterday for me." A long silence stretched between them, dense with the gravity of lost years. Zura turned toward the console and began scanning biometrics. His DNA signature was a match. Kale Rowe, Commander, Human Alliance Special Forces. No anomalies. No recorded stasis entries. Nothing to explain how he had not aged a day. "What happened to the war?" he asked, voice low. "We lost," she replied. "Then we won. Then we all lost something else." His brow furrowed. "And you? You're commander now? Of a city built on treaties made with ghosts." Kale sat heavily on the edge of the diagnostics table. "Tell me the truth. Am I some clone? A decoy?" Zura's eyes narrowed. "No clone bleeds the way you did. No decoy could remember my scars." She stepped forward, lifting her collar slightly to reveal a faint, puckered wound near her neck. "You got me this." Took a plasma round to the chest, pulling me out. Kale stared at it, then met her gaze. Something passed between them, fragile and sharp. "I buried you under a Siriath tree. The kind you like because they glowed in the dark. Your grave is still there." He looked away, the corner of his mouth twitching. "Sounds peaceful." She crossed her arms. "And yet here you are." Kale's voice turned bitter. "I don't know how, but I need to find out. You think I volunteered for time travel?" "No, but someone did this to you." Outside the room, sirens wailed briefly, signaling the arrival of a classified courier. Zura ignored it. Her focus remained locked on the impossible man before her. "I spent decades trying to forget your death," she said quietly. "Now you walk back into my life like no time has passed at all. What do you expect me to do with that?" "I don't know. But if I'm back, it's not an accident." "Agreed," she said. "Which means someone brought you back for a reason." Kale stood, his voice firmer now. "Then let's find them. Together." Zura stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. And far above, in the shadowed vaults of the citadel, Eyes watched their reunion unfold in silent anticipation. The door to the archive chamber hissed open, revealing rows of crystalline data cores pulsing with a dull, inner light. Zura stepped inside first, hand hovering near her sidearm. Kale followed, his gaze sweeping the room like a soldier reconnoitering unknown terrain. The silence here was colder than the air, dense with secrets buried beneath centuries of peace built on half-truths. She moved toward a secured console, entering a passphrase only 3 living Vayari were permitted to know. The room dimmed as a projection flared to life, a holographic interface glowing in pale blues and violet script. These archives were sealed after the Concordance Accords, she said, fingers dancing across the controls. Most of them are off-limits to even me. But you, her voice tightened. You're not in any of the usual records. That's what bothers me. Kale watched as streams of data flickered and spiraled around them. His name, his rank, his last confirmed mission, it was all there, ending in a red-stamped Kia. The record matched what Zura remembered. But deeper within the encrypted layers, something unexpected shimmered to the surface. A file marked Project Ashfall. Zura hesitated. This wasn't here before. Not in any scan. Kale stepped closer. Then someone doesn't want us finding it. She unlocked the file. A series of documents unspooled, scans, reports, neurological maps, and then a video log. The feed crackled to life, revealing a sterile chamber bathed in soft white light. A human scientist, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, stood over a suspension pod. Inside it, Kale, skin pale, eyes closed, hooked into monitoring systems like a relic displayed in a museum. Zura felt her stomach twist. Stasis. Kale's hands curled into fists. They froze me. The log played on. The scientist spoke in clipped tones, referencing cognitive backups, memory engrams, cellular reprogramming. Kale's DNA had been altered, preserved, enhanced, repaired at the molecular level. His entire biological system had been kept in perpetual stasis, awaiting activation. Who was behind this? He asked, eyes hardening. Zura searched the metadata. The Human Alliance. But it was unofficial. Black budget. They called it a contingency for post-war leverage. You weren't a volunteer, Kale. You were a test case. His jaw tensed. They turned me into a weapon. You were meant to be revived when the balance of power shifted. A perfect soldier, untouched by time, loyal to a world that no longer exists. He laughed bitterly. Guess they forgot about me. Or someone remembered at the worst possible moment, she replied. Outside the archive, movement stirred. Security drones swept past, unaware of the truth cracking open within the walls. Zura closed the interface, encrypting the file under her own biometric seal. Back in her quarters, the mood shifted. The sterile calm of the archive gave way to something heavier, more intimate. Kale stood near the viewport, staring out at the city. The alien skyline shimmered under a field of stars, both beautiful and strange. I dreamed of you, he said softly, while I was under. Or maybe it wasn't dreaming. Maybe it was what was left of me, trying to hold on. She sat across from him, removing her gloves with slow precision. I used to think that grief was a wound time would heal. But it's more like gravity. You learn to carry it. Kale turned, and for the first time, the mask of the soldier cracked. You moved on. I had to, she said. But I never stopped looking for answers. Until I convinced myself there weren't any left. Now he was here, flesh and breath and impossibility, standing before her with the same eyes that had once made impossible promises in the middle of a war. But he wasn't the same, not entirely. And neither was she. They both knew it. Who would bring me back now, he asked. What do they want? Zura didn't answer immediately. She moved to her terminal, pulling up recent traffic logs. A stealth transport docked 3 cycles ago. No transponder. Human origin. Someone smuggled you planet-side. So whoever brought me out of stasis, they're here. And watching us, likely, she said grimly. A silence passed between them, filled with the echoes of too many questions. Zura straightened, battle-hardened instincts resuming command. There's someone who might know more. An archivist named Vren. He was in intelligence during the blackout era. If there's a whisper of this project in the older net caches, he'll know where to look. Kale nodded. Then we go to him. Not we, she said. You're too visible. If word spreads that a dead human soldier is walking the halls of the Citadel, it'll spark more than questions. Stay here. I'll speak to him first. He frowned, but didn't argue. Instead, his gaze lingered on her, as if trying to memorize the lines of her face again. Zura, I don't know if I'm supposed to be alive, but if I am, it's because of you. She looked at him, eyes unreadable. Then make it mean something. When she returned hours later, her face was pale, mouth drawn tight. He's dead, she said. Kale stood. Vren. Execution style. Clean shot, back of the head. Someone covered it as a random mugging. But he was the only person left who had access to the off-grid server records from the war. Kale's face hardened. Someone's closing the loop. Zura looked around her quarters, suddenly alert. And we're next. The lights flickered. A low hum vibrated through the walls, almost imperceptible. She drew her weapon as Kale ducked behind the console, accessing internal defenses. The screen flashed red. Security override detected. They're trying to breach the door. Zura moved to the wall panel, activating the emergency passage behind a concealed panel. There's a service shaft. It'll take us to the old section of the city. Unmapped. We move now. They slipped into the narrow tunnel just as the door behind them began to melt under the pressure of a high-frequency cutter. The citadel groaned around them, steel remembering war. Kale kept pace, his movements clean, practiced, too practiced. At one point, he ducked suddenly, reaching behind Zura to catch a falling support brace before it struck her. Reflexive, precise. Not natural. She paused, breath short. Kale, that wasn't human reflex. He didn't respond immediately. You said they altered me, he said at last. What if they didn't stop at preserving me? What if I'm more than what I was? Zura studied him, the gears of concern grinding against the memory of who he used to be. Then we find out before whoever built you does it first. Ahead, the tunnel opened into darkness, an abandoned layer of the city where shadows clung to the walls like memories. Neither spoke as they descended. Somewhere, a storm was building, but for now, they kept moving, chasing a truth that refused to stay buried. The underlayers of Vaer Prime were a forgotten artery of the past, a maze of decaying infrastructure, derelict vaults, and silent machines that hadn't stirred in centuries. Zura's boots echoed in the dust-choked silence, her pulse quick and sharp. Beside her, Kale moved like a shadow, the faint luminescence from his enhanced optics casting a ghostly glint in the dark. It was here, beneath the polished gleam of the citadel above, that truth waited, feral and patient. Zura stopped at a rusted hatch embedded in the wall. A biometric reader blinked dimly beside it. She held up her palm. The panel chirped once, then hissed open. The chamber beyond still functioned, dimly lit and cloaked in a haze of cold vapor. It was a containment lab, forgotten by most. Not by her. This place was decommissioned after the treaties. Too dangerous to dismantle, too valuable to destroy. But I remembered what Vren once told me. If the war ever came back, it would start in the place's history tried to erase. Kale stepped inside, gaze sweeping the room. Rows of containment pods lined the walls, most empty. But a few still held what appeared to be bodies, humans, or something that resembled them, suspended in silent captivity. I recognize this tech, Kale muttered. It's like the chamber from the video log. Same life support matrix. Same stasis cradle. Zura moved to a central console, accessing what remained of the system's integrity. Most files had been purged, but one thread remained, a single encrypted log marked with Kale's designation. She opened it. A projection materialized, a younger version of the same scientist from before. His voice carried a sharp urgency. If you're seeing this, Subject Zero has awakened prematurely. That was not the intended protocol. Kale Rowe was to remain dormant until political necessity dictated his activation. Any deviation suggests internal sabotage or external interception. He is more than a soldier. The enhancements we implemented, neural augmentation, synthetic muscle regeneration, cognitive imprint looping, these make him the most advanced weapon of his kind. Kale stiffened. Weapon. Zura closed the log. They didn't bring you back because they missed you. They brought you back because they needed you to win something. He stepped away from the pods, hands clenched. And when they were done, they'd bury me again. Zura didn't argue. Instead, she approached a sealed pod in the far corner. Unlike the others, it was untouched by decay. Its status lights blinked steadily. What is this? Kale asked, moving beside her. She wiped frost from the pod's surface. Inside was a figure, Vaeri. Female. Tall, regal and bearing even in unconsciousness. Her skin shimmered in hues of deep indigo, her features sharp and eerily familiar. That's General Myra, Zura said slowly. She led the Vayari Council during the war. Disappeared a week before the concordance was signed. Everyone believed she'd been assassinated. Kale stared at the sleeping form. What's she doing down here? Zura exhaled. I think she was part of it. Maybe even in charge. They hid her too. Maybe to silence her. Maybe to preserve her knowledge. A sudden tremor shook the chamber, subtle but distinct. Dust drifted from the ceiling like snow. Zura glanced at the structural monitors. They've found us, she said. Kale moved to the console. There's an extraction platform beneath the lab. I can trigger it manually. It'll collapse the floor and drop us to the next level. Old evac route. Zura's eyes narrowed. How do you know that? He hesitated. I don't. I just do. The silence that followed was brittle. You're remembering things that weren't part of your life, she said slowly. They programmed me, he replied. Not just with memories. With knowledge. With instincts. Another tremor. This time louder. Closer. Zura drew her sidearm. No more running. We get out. We go public with this. No more secrets. Kale nodded and slammed his hand onto the panel. The floor gave way beneath them. They dropped into darkness. The platform landed with a jolt in a cavernous chamber bathed in blue light. Around them, holograms bloomed, old propaganda reels, faded war footage, lines of tactical data. A central dais activated, revealing a live transmission. A man's face emerged. Human. Pale, cold-eyed. Unknown. Zura Vex. Kaelro. You've gone too far. Zura raised her weapon, though the figure was only a projection. Who are you? Director Arlen. I oversaw Ashfall after Dr. Elan's death. Your reactivation, Kale, was not scheduled, but it is acceptable. We'll retrieve you now. You're not retrieving anything, Zura snapped. We know what you did. We have enough to bring down what's left of the Alliance leadership. Arlen smiled. Do you? Do you think the people of Vaer or Earth care what ghosts like us have done to preserve peace? We built a future on engineered sacrifice. No one wants to remember the cost. Kale stepped forward. You made me a tool. You killed the people who could have stopped you. But you forgot one thing. Arlen tilted his head. And what's that? I'm awake now. With a swift motion, Kale accessed the relay beneath the console and uploaded the Ashfall logs to the open net. Every file. Every lie. Alarms screamed. Systems flickered. You've doomed billions, Arlen said, voice like static. No, Zura said. You did that centuries ago. We're just lighting the fuse. The transmission cut out. Behind them, the chamber shook with the sound of incoming pursuit. Zura grabbed Kale's hand, pulled him through the collapsing passage. The surface was near. The sky called above. And with it, reckoning.